Well, hello. Yes, it's me. We're going to go live, even though Antony's not here yet, because I have to record a show. And I'll be goddamned if a Scotsman is going to stand me up and ruin my show. So, without further ado...
Welcome to Electric Liberty Land, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
What is happening, everybody? Yes, welcome to Electric Liberty Land. I'm just trying to adjust this. I don't like the camera auto-adjusting. It always screws me up and always seems to locate on something that is not, in fact, in the foreground or the background. But anyway, hey, welcome to the show, guys. I am Brian McWilliams, here alone, all by myself, because Antony is supposed to be on the show. My friend, a man that shares a bloodline, some could argue, proud Scotsman. And yet, despite confirming earlier today, despite letting him know that, yes, we'll be recording, confirming with him, making many meow kitten jokes and sexual references back and forth on Facebook Messenger, I am here alone, sitting here talking to you. But that's all right. You know what? Because I don't need anybody. I don't need to talk about universal basic income. I don't need to talk about solutions. I don't need to talk about shit. All I need is you and me and this microphone spitting hot truth. And that's what we're going to do. And see, maybe he'll come, maybe he'll pop in. It'll be fun. It'll be like a live call-in show, except the guy calling in live will actually be the guest that's supposed to be on the show. Super Spreader Sammeroff. Super stand-up Brian McWilliams Spreader Sammeroff. Anyway, I got plenty to talk about. But before I talk about any of this other stuff, I want to talk about something that I just saw, which is too funny. Speaking of British-related authors, and I don't know if Antony is pro-Scottish independence. I would think he probably is. But, you know, I don't know if he identifies as British or as a member of the United Kingdom. But I will say another very famed United Kingdom author, George Orwell, just got a very interesting trigger warning placed upon one of his books, which is the height of irony. But before that, I want to tell you guys about a brand new sponsor for the show. That is IPVanish, IPVanish VPN. Because, guys, are you tired of getting watched on the internet? You tired of people stalking your info, stalking your data? Tired of having your information, your personal privacy out there for hackers, for scammers, just for everybody in general? Well, IPVanish is going to help you get in there, protect your right to privacy, and help you stay anonymous. Now, IPVanish helps you browse the internet without exposing private details. You can use IPVanish on a tablet, on a computer. You can basically put it in anywhere you are going to be browsing online and be safe and protected for your personal information. It doesn't slow your computer down, by the way. It is a one-click, bam process. You click it, you're good to go with IPVanish. All of your data is encrypted. That means private details, passwords, browsing history, which is very important. All of this is completely shielded from falling into the wrong hands. Even your physical location is masked by IPVanish. You're virtually invisible online. It's just that simple. Now, they're offering an amazing value right now, 70% off a plan, yearly plan for our listeners here at the Lions Liberty Podcast. Basically, you get in, you get a 30-back money guarantee, and essentially you're getting 9 months free of this service. So, super easy. Like I said, it's a one-button tap and click. You're on there. You're protected. Stop sharing with everybody out there in the world, guys. Get in IPVanish VPN. Go to ipvanish.com/lions and use promo code LIONS. LIONS, Lions. Again, ipvanish.com/lions and get your 70% savings. Again, ipvanish.com/lions. Now, I mentioned George Orwell. Of course, what's Orwell most famous for, right? I mean, he's got several books that are very famous, obviously Animal Farm's up there. But when we talk about the seminal work that Orwell has, talking about censorship, talking about double talk, talking about the government's getting involved with how you imbibe information, how they control the flow of the narrative, how they control what is, in fact, truthfulness. what is in fact designed to cause divisiveness and hate among the population, and how they use that to control you, to split you off from family, to turn family member against loved ones, children against fathers, neighbor against neighbor. Well, of course, it's 1984. So, guess what book just got slapped with a trigger warning? Yes, trigger warnings designed to ostensibly protect the sensible little lambs among us who can't handle information or even facts that go against their understanding of the world, or at least the way that the government and the powers that be want them to understand the world. So, a university called, the University of Northampton, this is over in the UK, has put a trigger warning on George Orwell's novel on the grounds that it contains quote-unquote explicit material which some students may find offensive and upsetting. Now, Orwell's novel, 1984, does have explicit scenes in it. It does have sex, it does have nudity, it does have things that would push the boundaries, but nothing that you would say should really trigger people that much, at least in my opinion. Not that it would deserve to have a trigger warning on it, outside of perhaps what it's teaching people to think, what it's teaching people to believe, which is that the government does not have your best interest in mind. That there are power levers that are constantly being pushed and pulled in order to keep you complacent, to keep you complicit, to keep you, as I mentioned on my last show, a government soldier. Doesn't necessarily even have to be a military soldier, but a government soldier from an ideology perspective, from a ideas perspective, from a loyalty perspective. And that's why they are able to turn people against each other. This is why the battle for information, the battle for reality is so prominent. Now, I would venture to say that these trigger warnings now have gone past the ideas wherein it's not to protect the sensitivity, right? This is a smokescreen. The sensitivity smokescreen blowing past all of our windows, a billowing cloud of bullshit that basically is giving these people a pass to censor and proactively, because won't somebody think of the children, proactively censor content that they know could be provocative or raise questions in the minds of people that they want to toe the line, especially when it comes to government schooling, especially when it comes to the academia system and universities, which we know are tied in with big government, or tied in with so many of these institutions. And of course, where did these universities get their money from? Oh, a ton of it's from the government, right? Especially state schools in the UK, universities. In the UK, of course, universities free. So all their money is coming from the government or from the taxpayers. So naturally, they don't want anything that's going to rattle the cage that they've built for these students that they're convinced they have to take part in. And Orwell is part of that. So what do? Well, kids, we're going to slap a trigger warning on this for your own protection, right? This is content that could be detrimental to your psyche. This is something that could deeply hurt you if you have something in your past, or maybe there's a sexual assault, or something in the past where there was a beating, or something that's, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of the different, I'm trying to think explicitly of the things in 1984 that could be construed as trigger worthy, right? And again, they're few and far between for me. But because they've got this scenario set up wherein these children are looking to their overlords at academic universities, at places of higher learning, to protect them from ideas that might be provocative, to protect them from, as I said, even real world facts and data, which is perverse to think about, that you have to be protected from reality, empirical reality. But this is fiction, of course, but even you have to be protected from fictional versions of reality if it triggers an emotional response. But it's so convenient because now they can just say, okay, which things are going to be the most dangerous to read? Which things are going to impact the population negatively on their outlook on government, on their outlook on control, on their outlook on censorship, on their outlook on academia, on their outlook on X, Y, and Z. And Orwell's 1984 is all of those things, especially in the COVID era, especially when social media is being labeled misinformation, especially when you have Spotify now saying they're going to label any podcast that touches on COVID-19, I'll say 18, touches on COVID-19 with a label that says, hey, go and check this COVID information fact sheet. Everything, by the way. Like this, I'm talking to somebody at Spotify today because we're thinking about going over there. Now, I don't think we will. I think it's a deal breaker. But because of this flap with Joe Rogan and Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, which I'll talk about in just a bit, now they're going to put anything COVID related with a handy dandy link that says, hey, make sure you go and check out our COVID-19 page. Now, what do you think's on the COVID-19 page, guys? Do you think it's all of the government narratives, half of which were disproven over the past year, that were labeled as misinformation, right? All the facts that were labeled as misinformation removed from social media and banned your profiles over the past year that now have been proven to be accurate? Oh, well, all the government lies are up there, COVID-19. All the kowtowing to the authoritarian regime narrative is on there on that page. Point being, coming back around to this, you have a state wherein misinformation is the word du jour. It is used liberally across virtually all content now, content censored, and you have trigger warnings being applied in the same way. But they know it's not just applied to misinformation. They know it's being applied proactively as basically as a blindfold for these kids that are trusting in the authorities, that are trusting the authorities have their best interests in mind and know what the best thing is for these kids. So it is basically a prophylactic. Imagine a big gooey condom, extra spermicide, being slapped over all these kids' heads to protect them from any ideas filtering in, laying little baby idea brains in them, and actually sparking individual thought, independent thought, or any questioning of authority. That's what's happening with these trigger warnings. And it is by design. I didn't think about this when it first came out. I thought, this is just more woke idiocy, right? This is the snowflake generation demanding that they be protected from these thoughts, from these ideas, because they were too sensitive. And it's a very self-centered generation right coming up. It's a very sensitive generation. Now I realize how wrong I was. I realize what an idiot I was to not see that these trigger warnings are coming from on top. They're coming from on high as an additional lever of power, because you can control what's being read, not by force, right? That's the beauty of this. It isn't through force. It's by manipulation and the concept that these kids have a choice on whether or not to read that book. But if it has a trigger warning, and these kids are brought up to think, oh, well, I'm a sensitive little flower, or because I had something in my past, or just because, rape is yucky, right? Or sexual, or just seeing naked people is yucky, or, XYZ, beatings and torture, yucky. Well, I don't want to read that book. It's got a trigger warning. How handy. How unbelievable. The illusion of free will by virtue of trigger warnings that they put on these books, which dissuade the children from reading them. And they don't have to ban them. But it has the same practical effect. Amazing. I mentioned Joe Rogan and Spotify. Now, let's see. Let me bring up Joe Rogan. Let me see. It might be too long to play on this. But he had a statement that he put out in response to Spotify, basically saying, to Spotify and Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. And I shouldn't have to tell anybody about this, but just in case you only get your news from me, great idea, by the way. Basically, Neil Young, who, by the way, had sold, I think, something like 1,000 of his songs. And I couldn't believe that he has that many. So I can't be correct. Maybe it's got to be all versions of all, God knows how many songs. But he sold his songs to a former Pfizer executive, right? And this big hedge fund group. So let's not think that Neil Young doesn't have any big corporate interest, and that Neil Young's some sort of state or some sort of saint that doesn't kowtow to any profit margins, or that strictly just follows his heart and what's right and wrong, right? Because he sold out to the biggest pharma in the world. Again, the former Pfizer CEO. And you have to wonder if that Pfizer CEO maybe said, hey, Neil, how about you speak out against this Joe Rogan guy? You're on Spotify, right? You're a big name. How about you do me a favor? Now, I have nothing to prove this. This is just something that my wife had shown me, a video compiling it. I said, okay, let me check and see if this is accurate. It was. And I'll find the name of the Pfizer CEO he sold to. But isn't it convenient that this happened when right as this is all blown up, and Joe Rogan's doing these interviews for years and years and years, right? He's had his podcast forever. Why now, at the end of the pandemic, when this Omicron is fading away, right? When it's far less dangerous, when people are maybe finally realizing that these vaccines aren't doing what we're being told they're doing, when public sentiment is turning against it, now's the time we got to really ramp this up. We got to attack this disinformation, right? Yeah, thanks, Neil. So let's see. He says he is. Hold on. God damn it! It's so annoying trying to find who he sold this shit to. Okay, Mercuriaditis Hypnosis Song Management Company. Hypnosis then merged with Blackstone in a $1 billion deal. And then they appointed Pfizer former chairman and CEO Jeffrey Kindler as the company's senior advisor. Senior advisors are responsible for tracking, analyzing, provide advice on the company's policy and operational issues. Their duties cut across blah, 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 blah. So anyway, the idea here is that, okay, so even though Kindler no longer, so he didn't sell it directly to Kindler, sorry. Kindler was a senior advisor on this Blackwater slash, I'm not even going to be able to pronounce it again, Hypnagosis, whatever that fucking is. They sold it to that group, right, this catalog. This guy, former Pfizer CEO, sits on this board now. He's a senior advisor. And, of course, we think that probably, definitely pushed Neil Young and probably other artists that they have. I'm not sure if Joni Mitchell's under the same banner as this organization, this publishing group now that owns the content, but one could surmise that the chances are good. One should really, we need like a tracking software to see how many artists that demand censorship, how many artists that demand that their content be pulled are members of this same cadre of publishing or content ownership groups, because I'm sure there's quite a bit of overlap. But in general, Joe Rogan, he's saying that, well, it's a podcast. I'm talking to people. I have conversations. And of course, the mainstream media is just freaking out about this, saying, and this I think is on a CNN panel, saying that disinformation being permitted to spread, right? That it's not that it's a First Amendment issue. Right? This is like on a panel I was listening to, like a clip. It's not that you don't have the right to be on a podcast, because nobody has the right to be on a huge platform like Joe Rogan, right? Well, that's true. You don't have the right to be on a platform. But they said that it's a duty to go on and not spread disinformation. Like, you don't have, basically saying you don't have the right to go against a government narrative when talking about a quote unquote life or death issue. That's how they position this. A life or death issue. Now, if I'm looking at things, and there was another new study that just came out from Japan showing that ivermectin, or I shouldn't have said the word, probably get flagged now again, saying that Ivor was safe and effective against COVID, right? This is a brand new study that had just come out. Now, in my opinion, it's far more dangerous from a life or death perspective. When we know in the early instances of the virus being out there, the pandemic spreading, when you had countries like India, which had been just destroyed with COVID because they have poor sanitation. You've got people living in very close conditions, not exactly the most hygienic. You have people living in giant family groups within the same domicile. You have people on trains that are packed to the gills. You ever seen trains in India for these commuters and these day laborers? You have people on top of each other, crammed in like sardines. Well, COVID's going to spread a lot faster in those situations. What did the government do? Well, Indian government gave Ivor to all of these different groups, and they had an unbelievable amount of success. Studies showing that 56% drops in hospitalizations and deaths. So if we're talking about life and death issues, well, I have to think that it's far more deadly, far more dangerous for somebody to say that Ivor doesn't work than it would be to have somebody on arguing that maybe the vaccines aren't as effective as we think, or that maybe they should have tried these other uses, or maybe just getting out in the sun and taking vitamin D and taking zinc is going to be highly effective, and we don't need to go down this, and we don't need to do lockdowns and masks. Yes, maybe masks aren't effective. The CDC's admitted that masks aren't as effective and that they don't do anything. Why do you think all the pivots being made now to force children to wear N95 masks? Which is just a child abuse. Clearly, the government has been either outwardly lying or just has gotten a lot of things wrong, right? And if that's the case, who's spreading more misinformation? Is it Joe Rogan having a conversation where he admits, I'm not a professional on this, I'm not a authority, but I'm going to talk to people that are going to give me a different perspective. And these people that he has on, it's not like a guy that came out from, he's like, hey, guess what? I've been out, as a professional, I'm a male stripper. But let me tell you my professional male stripping opinion on the use of Ivor, on the use of vaccines, coming from, a guy who rubs his thong up and down on a pole and gets dollar bills shoved into his pee hole, right? That's not who he's talking to. These people, like them or not, do have qualifications. And some of them have very high level qualifications. So what makes your source, CNN, what makes your government source that has qualifications that are equal in most cases to the people that are going on these shows, what makes them more reliable? Because they're backed by Big Pharma? Because they're backed by the government, who have so much invested? Again, bad people theory, as I've talked about many times here. The politicians, the pharma companies, and governments have so much invested in this being accurate and being correct because they know people will be up in arms. People will be coming for them if this goes sideways. Why do you think trigger warnings are going on Orwell's 1984? Because the people at the top are terrified of everybody else looking around and saying, you guys fucked us. You lied to us. You screwed us here. You ruined our lives. You locked our children away. You've cost us time, money, education, lives. I didn't see the birth of my kid. I didn't get to bury my uncle, whatever it might be. So they, of course, are going to back whoever it is that just says, oh, gladly, I'll take the money, I'll take the fame, and I'll kowtow to the narrative, rather than people that are willing to stand up and voice opinions. And let's not forget, this is supposedly the party of science, right? Like the government, in control of the government right now, the Democrats have technical control of the government. Fauci says an attack on him is an attack on science. Well, guess what? Science works through trial and error. And when you find out that something doesn't work, you don't just keep doubling down on it again and again and again, which is what's happened. You decide, oh, you know what? We can see the data. We know this isn't working. Well, let's change it. Let's try something different. Or let's stop using it. In science, if a good number of your patients aren't getting better, right? Well, then you try a different tact. If you tried something and the virus is still spreading, but nobody seems to be dying, why would you, again, triple, quadruple down on a tactic that doesn't do anything other than ruin people's lives? It doesn't save lives. We have all of the data. We have countries to compare it with. It's not like we're living in a bubble. It's not like we're in the ancient times where we were on an island and nobody in the island can talk to anybody else other than by carrier pigeon. We have a fucking society where information exchange is free. We have countries that have done the opposite of what we've done and had the exact same statistical results or better results when it comes to COVID, when it comes to lockdowns, when it comes to economy, when it comes to all of these things. And yet we keep doing it. Absolutely mad. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so Antony says he's in a taxi back to his Airbnb. Had me down for a half an hour from now. Don't know why. We literally said 4 o'clock PST. How does he have me down? He has it down for 5. What time zone? What clocks does this man use? Well, he's not coming on the show today. It's going to be too late. Because I'm just using this as is. We'll reschedule him for another time. But what can you do? What can you do? Super spreader, stand me up, Sammeroff. It's fine. Let me take a moment, by the way, guys, to tell you about another awesome sponsor of ours, which is, of course, is iTrustCapital, longtime sponsor, fantastic sponsor of ours, who's going to get you involved when you want to protect your assets with an IRA. Yes, or a Roth IRA. Now, of course, iTrustCapital, they are number one when it comes to the IRA game in regards to crypto-based portfolios, in regards to hard currencies. I'm talking about gold and silver investing, guys. They have that on their platform, which has over 25 cryptos on it. I just saw the other day, I got an email, they added a brand new one, so I guess it's over 26. But you can also use it just for basic trading, right? You don't have to use it for your account needs just for retirement, right? And the idea behind the IRA and Roth IRA is that you protect your money from the government taxes being taken out of it. Usually, with these IRAs, you have to wait. You have to wait a certain amount of time to get your money out. Now, you can take it out earlier, right? You can do that. But the idea is that it's for retirement. You can wait, take it out later on. However, with this platform, with iTrust, you can also just get in there and trade cryptos as you want. Right? You could get in there. They've got the lowest transaction fees in the industry. So you could get in there, trade your crypto, set it aside, have it safe from the government, especially which is so confusing now with these government stooges trying to figure out how they're going to tax it, this, that, and the other. So for crypto especially, which God knows, I'm terrified what my taxes are going to be like this year. How much are you going to tax me on my Bitcoin that goes up and down 50% every other day? But point being, long term, crypto's the way to go. right? We know the funds, we know the value of crypto, we know Bitcoin is going to be the go-to transactional. So get in there, get your account set up. And if you do, go to itrust.capital /Lions, right? You can get $100 of Bitcoin for free by starting that account up, right? Get in, you can transfer it over, you can create a new one, but you start that up, $100 of free Bitcoin, get yourself in a tax-safe environment, and if you want, keep on trading, do all their stuff. Over 1,500 reviews on Trustpilot, so you know they're backed up. They've got 2 different insurers to back them up as well, crypto insurers, so your funds are safe. They're not going to be hacked and stolen. That's all there. Plus, you get a new report that they just put out, a white paper on the scene, on crypto, on investing. So make sure you check that out, itrust.capital /Lions. Okay, so I will now talk about, sorry, Anthony's literally, he says I'm to blame for telling him 2 hours later, because we were originally supposed to record at 2 o'clock. So I said, we will now record at 4 o'clock, right? It should be fairly simple math, but he says I am to blame for telling him 2 hours later. I will say, yes, 2 hours later from 2 p.m. PST is 4 p.m. PST. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about, let me see what else. I had emailed myself, so fortunately, a couple topics to back up. How about this? Talking about books. A Washington school board just voted to remove To Kill a Mockingbird from its curriculum due to racial sensitivity. Now, of course, To Kill a Mockingbird is designed to be racially uncomfortable. You are designed to want to, basically, or not to want to, you're designed to feel uncomfortable. I mean, you're designed to want to embrace the awkwardness, embrace the horror that is that book. And if you take that out, if you say it's not, I mean, I don't know what you do instead, right? I mean, if you pull out To Kill a Mockingbird, what are you going to replace it with? Ibram X. Kendi's All White People Are Evil? Well, To Kill a Mockingbird basically has that. It's a story about a black man who is basically convicted, is murdered because he just happens to be a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. Isn't that what we want our children to learn? I mean, yes, it's racially insensitive to who? I mean, you want people to be racially sensitive to the evils that happen in society. It's a classic book. It's taught millions of people to rethink how they look at race, how they look at interactions, their own biases, whether those are explicit or inward, the way in which they understand criminal justice, the way in which they understand evidence and railroading and how these things can work together, and mob mentality. Mass formation psychosis when it comes to rape and race. When it comes to viewing the other as evil, as something to be feared instead of something to be interested in, something to be welcomed. This is pure liberal idiocy at work. I mean, I can't think of a dumber example. Honestly, I can't think of a dumber example of something. I mean, I guess it kind of is similar to, well, not that similar, right? Yeah, Apu being removed from The Simpsons. Apu's character on The Simpsons existed to showcase how something could both be a stereotype, a racial stereotype, right? You have this Indian guy, he works at a Quickie Mart, and at the same time, he's a stereotype, thank you, come again, but he's also something that they can play off as a foil to showcase the ignorance of the other people in Springfield, to use him as a foil to say, be better than this. And when those morons took him off the show, it removed the ability to play with that character, to hold the mirror up to people and say, this is what you look like. This is ignorance. This is how you look when you treat people as a stereotype when they're far deeper than that. And you can still have some fun with it. Now, To Kill a Mockingbird, not the most fun read, but it's still holding the mirror up to you and saying, this is what can happen. This is what has happened in the past, in America, in the past. When we talk about something that I don't have a problem with when it comes to a literary adaptation and interpretation of historical events. Now, this isn't based on a pure historical event, but it's using it as inspiration. Yes, black men were railroaded. They were put on trial for crimes they didn't commit. They were hung essentially to protect others or as a scapegoat, kind of like the witches in Salem. They were a scapegoat for the broader problems that had they were to blame in that town. it was an easy out to put everyone out at ease in the town rather than having to look at each other, look at their neighbors, and wonder who did this horrible thing. So this is a great example of what people can learn from. And yet, racial sensitivity? We're going to say the same people that want to remove this book for racial sensitivity, To Kill a Mockingbird, an American classic, for racial sensitivity, are the same people that I guarantee are pushing critical race theory, are pushing you and your children, well, I say your children, not you so much, but are pushing your children to think of everything in regards to race and class, to think about how they are different from other people, and to believe that they have been victims of a patriarchy, of a white supremacist society, that they have nothing to blame except white people, and somehow this is not racially insensitive? That racial sensitivity doesn't mean that you should probably not foment divisiveness, not foment hatred, not foment a environment in which people are looking at each other's differences rather than similarities. It's fucking bonkers. It's bonkers. I swear, man. And women. And transsexuals. I swear, the hypocrisy that is blatant with all of these leftists is just, it's mind-boggling. That's where the cognitive dissonance just hurts me. It hurts me that these people don't see it. There was some guy, I reviewed Don't Look Up, right? Which I enjoyed. But I went at it, I just made one comment. This guy, Torre, he's got a big phone, black guy, very, very progressive black guy. And of course, he posts that Don't Look Up is an indictment of right-wing idiocy and right-wing ignorance when it comes to climate change and COVID. And I wrote back, I was like, buddy, your hypocrisy here is so blatant. I was like, do you not realize you're accusing these people of being ignorant, of not looking at reality in front of their faces? You are equally guilty of everything that you're accusing them of. And the fact that you don't see it is just laughable. Naturally, some other dummy replies to me, because of course this guy's got 600,000 followers, replies to me and says, "Captain Whataboutism to the rescue," which this idiot Torre retweets. What about what I said was whataboutism? Was anything in that whataboutism? No. These people use whataboutism, which, by the way, whataboutism is the mating call of the moron. I'm telling you, whataboutism is a go-to phrase for people that can't think of anything clever to respond to or don't understand the point that's being made. People were using whataboutism when you would criticize judicial results, showcasing how one thing doesn't make sense in the context. For example, I remember people talk about whataboutism when I was pointing out the absurdity of, General Flynn getting thrown into jail for doing basically nothing except his job and talking to the Russians, and comparing that to Hillary Clinton getting off despite all the things she did, right? All the things that violated beyond a doubt 50 times over more than Flynn ever did, in conspiring with foreign powers during an election, right? Conspiring to create a conspiracy for the incoming president, all these other things. And they go, well, that's whataboutism. No, showcasing two things that have similar circumstances with completely disparate outcomes is not whataboutism. That is showcasing hypocrisy. And me informing this guy that he's a hypocrite because he does the exact same thing he's accusing the right wing of doing is the least whataboutism ever. I'm not saying what about anything. I'm just pointing out that you do the same thing. And this guy retweets Captain Whataboutism. As though it means anything, as though it's an ace. He thought it was such a clever response that it was an ace in the hole that he had to retweet. I mean, this is what we're doing. And this guy's got like 600,000 followers. Shocking. How about another thing? Well, we're talking about race and gender and everything else. So I will talk about this. I just think it was so funny, right? You've got basically Joe Biden going in. He was saying that he's going to put in explicitly a black woman to the Supreme Court. Now, this is funny because The View, which I'm not going to go into The View too much, they're just atrocious imbeciles. Of course, we know that Whoopi Goldberg really put her foot in it recently, because just yesterday she had said the Holocaust wasn't about race. And, I could get in a way what she's saying. She was saying, well, it's because it's not about black and white, right? And she's in the mindset, this super progressive mindset of everything is strictly by the color of your skin that you define things by. And look, you can come at me over this. I don't think Jews are a race. And here's why. You can't convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. Okay, you could say people that are from Israel or people that are, I guess, a genetic lineage of that type or a race, Middle Eastern or Arabic. I don't know. I mean, a lot of them came from different regions, so maybe say import, whatever they might be. I don't think you can say that Jews are a race. They are spread out. There are many Jews that look many different colors and are many different lineages and bloodlines and blood types from all over the world. I just don't think you could call it a race. Like I said, if I can't convert to being black, but I can convert to being Jewish, you can see where the disparity is there. However, let's not get too fine of a point here. When you're saying that it wasn't about race or it wasn't about it was, because the Jews were viewed as a different race from the rest of the Nazis or the rest of the German population, right? They were striving for a white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, homogenous society, and they wanted to have only the best of the best and the best of the best, by their definition, right? The genetic best of the best. So they viewed Jews as genetically inferior. Fine. I would say that is a race classification or I don't even know, an evolutionary classification by the Germans. Regardless, what a stupid thing to say by Whoopi Goldberg to say that it wasn't based on race, as though there's a huge difference between people hating each other, killing each other over a difference in genetics, which is what it boils down to. She's an idiot. But The View also was going after, again, after she says this today, but days ago, she's going after Clarence Thomas and Amy Cohen Barrett for being traitors to their race and their gender. And it's like these people just don't seem to understand how completely hypocritical. I mean, it's just, they say these things with zero understanding of irony, right? They're saying that Clarence Thomas doesn't represent the black community, right? Clarence Thomas is a man who's been on the Supreme Court for God knows, I don't even know how long, 30 years, right? Quite a long time. He didn't have any of the advantages that so many black Americans have today, insofar as programs that are designed to boost up black America, hiring procedures, education procedures, online charities, all these other things that are now really hyper-focused on pushing forward black America, right? Clarence Thomas didn't have any of that. He had to get ahead on what he had at the time, hard work, intelligence, probably had some connections here and there. Let's not, to get to the Supreme Court, you got to do something here or there a little bit. But point being, how is Clarence Thomas not more black than, I don't know, any of the candidates that would be nominated to the Supreme Court right now, right? And look, I'm not the judge of blackness. I'm not trying to pretend I am. But let's just break it down and just say, how is he not representative of black America? Having been in black America longer than almost anybody else out there, having been in this game, having to prove himself daily, working in the halls of power where I'm sure when he was not probably welcomed anywhere near as much as people would be welcomed now, when he was put in that position, when he's fighting his way up through the ranks to get notoriety, to become, to make a name for himself to the point where you can become a Supreme Court justice. How is he not representative of black America, of the fight? So apparently, according to The View, he is a race traitor because he doesn't think it's a good idea that when Stephen Breyer retires, that they just name a black woman as a replacement and eliminate all other candidates from consideration. I mean, this is like what I was talking about when it comes to the entertainment industry or any of these other industries that focus on diversity and inclusion, right? And I just saw the Gersh Agency just named some jackass to take over as their head of diversity and inclusiveness, right? To really push forward all that they're doing to make sure they have a representative, diverse pipeline of blah, 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 blah. That sounds nice. The guys, I'm sure, getting paid $250,000 a year to do it. But what it comes down to practically, and this is the same with the Oscars demanding more diversity and all this other shit. What it comes to practically is you're talking about a portion of the population, which is 20%, right? We're talking about Black America, 20%. If you're saying, well, I'm only going to go after a Black female candidate, right? Half the Black population is male, so you cut them out. Now you've lowered your population that you're going to find somebody from down to 10%. How many of those 10% are lawyers, right? Have a deep understanding of the legal system that are Black women? 1%? I don't know. I don't know what the level of, what the ratio of Black female lawyers is, or Black female professors in the legal realm might be. But you're talking about one of the most powerful positions in the world, right? Not just the country, in the world, because the Supreme Court dictates how much power the government has, right? Well, it used to anyway. Used to be a check on it. One of the most powerful positions in the entire world, and a lifelong position. You've now narrowed it down to 1% of the population that you're looking at. And even vastly less than that, probably, of the people that could be considered potentially qualified for this position. 0.001% of the population. And that's what you've given us. That's your criteria. It's fundamentally stupid. And it's the same thing with entertainment business, same thing with anything else where they're saying, we're just going to go after people in this. You are completely just making your talent pool minuscule. And then you're going to tell me that the content coming out, that the hires, that the talent, that the Supreme Court justices, that the whatever it might be, that the teachers, that the whatever are going to be the best of the best when you are eliminating 95% of the fucking population before you even start looking? It's the opposite of meritocracy. It's the opposite of logic. It's the opposite of just basic statistical, consistency. And so find the best in any way possible. Don't limit yourself. It's absolute madness. Absolute fucking madness. But what can you say? Let's see what Joe Biden finds. I'm sure he'll be really cracking along. Maybe it will be Kamala Harris, right? Wasn't that the rumor that they're just going to make Kamala Harris there? That way they don't have to worry about running her out again because she's terrible. Nobody likes her. Can you imagine just having to sit next to her in the Supreme Court as she interrupts and yells over everybody, as she yammers on? I mean, I'd say she would be the most incoherent person on there, but we saw what Sotomayor's level of competence is, which is basically zero. So, but again, there's no accountability. The CDC didn't correct Sotomayor after she went on her 100,000 kids, many on ventilators statement. And that was just one of many falsehoods that was perpetrated in that hearing. So I guess Kamala can just go up there and cackle in the middle of whatever it might be. Second Amendment? Piracy off the bounty? Whatever. Whatever. That doesn't seem to matter anymore. All right, last thing, I'll wrap this up. Should I just still title the episode? I am almost tempted to do a Dan Smots, which is funny. If you missed it, by the way, Dan Smots, happy 300th episode to Dan over at the System Is Down pod. He's one of our favorite guys and is actually collaborating with me right now on the new look, the new sound of what's going to happen on this show next. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very exciting, launching in March. But he is a great ongoing campaign. Actually, I should just pull it up and run it. Hold on. I'll give him some nice I'll give him some nice promo here just because it's such a funny little clip. And basically he has a hilarious thing that he did wherein he calls out Dave Smith for being too cowardly to go on his podcast. And it's been a back and forth going for quite some time now. Dave refuses to go on the show. Dan, on his 300th episode, which I did a call-in, I did a little comedy roasting jokes on there, so make sure to check that out. It's very funny. But he now has a video, To Catch a Coward, the Dave Smith story. And he had some other ones that are shorter. I'm trying to see if I can play that one first, but I'll just play his most recent one. This is his most recent. He's been pretty clever with these things. Let me cue this up and I'll play it for you right now. Let me share my screen. Boop, boop, beep, boop. And there we go. All right. To catch a coward is the visual graphic that's on the screen.
To go like this, I was a fan of Dave. I didn't set out to do anything other than be friends with him. A lot of people don't seem to really understand, the gravity of this situation. I mean, the only words I can really use for it are irrational and, repugnant. Yes, I am just some little stupid podcaster, but this is more to do with the lies and deception from Dave Smith. I mean, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. I don't really like that term. I don't think it really applies here, but if you look at all these different things, from Porkfest to the Break the Cycle incident to now with the internet dropping out, how many of these things can just be coincidences? If this is the way he's treating people like me, how do you think he's going to treat people like Joe Sixpack once he becomes the president of the United States? Is that really the type of leadership that this party or this caucus or this country needs right now? I've gotten a lot of pushback for the way I've handled this, and I think I've been nothing but fair in this whole ordeal. I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I try to give everybody a fair shake, but you can only take so much.
There we go. Anyway, so there it is. And yeah, Dave Smith, get your ass on that show. Supposedly it's actually happening. I think it's happening today when the show airs. I'm doing this live for the Pride because I was supposed to be talking to Sammeroff here for the Lions of Liberty Pride, which, by the way, you could join. Go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. Join, get access to our secret Pride group on Facebook, get access to all the bonus content, Conspiracy Corners, a new one's just popping now. Good Morning Fuckhead Rants from me, which are dynamite, and watch along with us, have a good time. Also, lionsofliberty.locals. Go and join there. But I think Dave's going to be on today, but we'll see if it happens because Dan had announced that Dave Smith's going to be on the show, and then he had a show called the Dave Smith episode, which was his episode 300, and it had the guy Dave from Dave vs. Goliath and Josh Smith. So he had technically Dave Smith, just not the Dave Smith. So very exciting to see what's going to happen there. Also, while I'm talking about podcasts, I'll tell you, Burn in Daylight, another awesome podcast. Our buddy Matt McKinley over there, Burnin, Burnin, Daylight. Matt's a funny guy. He's out there in Nevada, ranching, riding horses, hustling cattle, talking shit, drinking whiskey. Great listen, and very funny stuff. And especially the early episodes, if you go way back, you can literally just, it's like you just hear him riding on a horse, just talking into his phone. Pretty funny. All right, last story. Pure evil. We'll call this story Pure Evil because that's what it is. And this is showcasing, if you want to see just how perverse, how disgusting, and how punitive the COVID cult regime is, this story sums it up perfectly. And this is on Politico to show you the worms turning. Now, this is Politico in the European Union. We just had Bill Maher had a big thing where he had Barry Weiss on talking about the COVID regime and talking about how this all is insane. He also just had a great quote, by the way. And I tried to watch the whole episode, but it kind of pissed me off because he's still very left. But at least he's fair. And just recently I tweeted this out, which you can follow me at Brian McWilliams. But I just recently tweeted this out saying that he had the best quote I've ever heard Bill Maher say, right? The absolute best. And what he had said was that Democrats no longer possess the common sense to know that not every problem can be fixed with a regulation. Democrats have to stop thinking that what voters dream about is to be hassled. Amen, Bill. Slow clap, buddy. Slow clap. That is prolific. I just hope that Democrats are waking up to that realization as well. Now, I hope that they wake up to a realization that all regulations are terrible and that we need to really crush all of these things at once rather than just say, well, let's just pull it back a little bit because regulations are mostly good. Another topic that Antony and I were probably going to talk about on the show today, but we didn't get into. But regardless, I think I should still title the episode Antony. I'll title the episode Stood Up by Super Spreader Sammeroff and just roll with it. I think it's hilarious. I think there's no downside to it. Everybody wins. But anyway, okay, getting back to pure evil. This hospital, right? It's a UK hospital. I'm sorry. It's a Greek hospital. This is in Athens. A 3-year-old boy from Cyprus was initially denied treatment in foreign hospitals because his parents were unvaccinated, has raised concerns about whether doctors should be allowed to turn away patients, which, by the way, is what Howard shitbag Stern wants for everybody. Howard Stern, of course, who is the most pro-censorship, pro-death if you don't kowtow to the government that has ever lived. I've disgusting lost all respect for him, and I want him just to disappear. I want him gone. He's down the memory hole for me. I'm flicking him out of my own mind. I don't want to hear anything from that piece of shit ever again. But basically what happened here is that this kid was denied going to hospitals because his parents were unvaccinated. And they said that because they were unvaxxed, they were not allowed to come to the hospital. They weren't allowed to, intern, I don't know, whatever it is, to drop him off, to get him in the procedure, to be there with him. And because the kid's 3 years old, he's a minor, he has to have an adult with him to get the procedure going. However, you'd think, okay, if you don't allow us to come in, how about we have a legal guardian come in and do it for him? Can we do that? Can we have a grandparent that is vaccinated do it instead? Oh, well, that's what Cyprus suggested they do. But when they said, okay, yep, government will take your suggestion. Here you go. Government turned it down. Turned it down. So they in turn now had to go run all over the place, right? They tried to go to the UK. They tried to go to Israel. They were turned down for the exact same reason. Oh, sorry, they were originally from Germany. There we go. I finally found it in the article. They buried it, but they're originally from Germany. So they were turned down in Frankfurt. They tried to find specialized health centers in the UK, in Israel. The UK and Israel both turned them down because they weren't vaccinated. 2 countries, by the way, the UK, this is before, because the UK now has rolled back all this idiocy. I've said idiocy way too many times in this. I stop using that word. No more, Brian. So the UK has rolled back all their COVID stuff because it doesn't work. So this must have been previous to this. Israel, which is one of the most vaccinated populations in the world, also recently just said, this isn't working. You have all people reading bylines from the health ministry saying, this isn't working. Let's stop doing it. They'll turn this kid away because the parents were unvaccinated, even though they have a legal guardian who was vaccinated, turned him away. Finally, they airlift him to Greece Saturday, and he'll get an operation at a private hospital in Athens, which is going to give him the chance to live. Let's see. Quote, I know that unvaccinated patients are admitted to hospitals in Germany, said the boy's father. I don't know that I had to be vaccinated for my child to be operated on that hospital. If I knew of it, of course I would have done it. I'm healthy. I do not want to be vaccinated. I find it inappropriate for someone who is healthy to be vaccinated. Well, I agree with you. And it just sucks that this kid, is basically going through a life or death situation because he wasn't vaccinated and he couldn't get fully vaxxed. It takes weeks. It's like I had to race to get vaccinated to go to Austria, and I had to get Pfizer, right? Much to my chagrin, I had to get Pfizer because it was the only one I could get in a short enough period of time to get over there, because in LA, you can't find Johnson & Johnson vaccine anywhere. They blacklisted it. Literally, you cannot find it. So anyway, that's the face of pure evil. That's the downside. We talk about COVID, when we talk about people taking this cult mentality to a beyond logical perspective, to a position where you're telling me that this kid, right? We know that the kid's not going to transmit it. The kid's not going to spread it. He can't even get vaccinated. The kid can't go in with a legal guardian that is vaccinated? Why? I mean, what possible reason would you have for that other than being punitive, other than being of the outward mentality of fuck anybody that doesn't get vaccinated? How dare you not comply, and we're going to let your kid die because of it? That's the only thing I can think of, because there's there's really no other reason that you could ever give. And they didn't give a concrete reason why they're not letting this kid's legal guardian come in and just give it to him, to take him in and have the surgery. All you're doing is walk in, you're not performing the surgery. So what other solution is there other than to say, well, Occam's razor, the simplest solution is usually correct. They want to be punitive. They want to showcase this kid died because you're unvaccinated. Go get your shot. Bingo, bango. All right, guys, that's going to do it from me, not from Antony Sammeroff. And I want to say from your good pal, Brian Clemens, from the Lions of Liberty, which, of course, we have 3 shows here on the network. And I'm going to be publishing a bonus episode on the Electric Liberty Land solo feed. Of course, remember, we have 3 different feeds as well as the main feed here. You can listen to the main feed. We're also doing a Lions of Liberty Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor show special for the main feed. Again, you can get that early by joining our Patreon or our Locals accounts. You'll get that content published early to you, but it will be publishing on the main feed. So again, reasons to keep the main feed as well as the 3 solo feeds. Bonus episode coming on the solo feed will be out on Saturday, and the Libertarians in Living Room Drinking Liquor will be out shortly next week, I think. So, or maybe on Saturday or Sunday itself. I'll have to see how quickly we get it out there. But anyway, thanks for listening. Please share the show. Please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and retweet all our stuff and post about us and, I don't know, blow us kisses. 5-star reviews, obviously, always great on iTunes. That's it. From me, from Electric Liberty Land, I want to tell you to always stay plugged in to liberty.